The views expressed here are solely the opinions of the hosts and the guests, and not necessarily those of the network, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc. If you have an issue with the content of the show, please contact the show host. Thank you.
Ron just said that sounded really not nice.
Sounded grumpy.
Sounded like I was grumpy. But no, we have to be serious on disclaimers. But welcome to the Paranormal Pride. I hope you are having a great night. And tonight, my guest is Mary Marshall, Paranormal MD. I've been wanting to talk to her for probably 7 years at this point. So go ahead and bring Mary up. And hi.
Hello.
We were supposed to meet back when Dan.
5 years ago.
Yeah, when Dan invited you to Utica, and you had a sudden move that you had to make that weekend, and you couldn't do it. It was 5 years ago.
Wait.
February.
Was this though where they were doing like investigations around? I was there.
No, this one you weren't. This was me and Ron, Dan Williams, David Glidden, John Long, all of PRI that existed at the time.
Oh wait, okay. You know what? I probably think it was literally a big move because I've been in this house for about 5 years.
Yeah, it was around February, and
I was going to say this was the April 1st. I actually was official here, so February, March, maybe.
Yeah, it was. I know exactly when it was. My daughter got pregnant, and I got a grandkid out of that weekend. But
while we were gone.
Yeah, while we were gone, I called him Baby Utica for a little while. But yeah, you sent a message going, "Hey, Dan, we're not going to make it. I have to move out right now." Something else to do with that move, and
my life is who only knows. One of those.
I'm just glad it finally happened because I knew that you had, and there were some other times I wanted to have you on, but you had stuff going on.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to meet you finally. I wish we had met. So are you in Illinois?
No, I'm actually in Kansas. So I'm just south of Kansas City.
Oh, wow. So we were going to meet down there. Yeah, that was a really fascinating little town of interesting tidbits of haunting stuff going on there.
Yeah, I kind of freaked him out. We had went to the lodge there because we had a meeting room there. And we walk in the next morning, and I go, "Who's this Larry guy that keeps showing up?" And they looked at each other, and they're going, He's a ghost at the bar, which we hadn't been to the bar, so we didn't know anything. And found out that Larry actually drowned during a tornado in the basement of a building down the street.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm sitting there going, okay, well, he's here and he's hanging out at, he's here, but he hangs out at your bar. And so they were really kind of creeped out that I knew about something that I shouldn't have known about.
No, right.
And name-wise, too. I didn't know. And Ron and them walked down to the memorial that's at the end of the street and said, his name's on there. I'm like, okay. So,
a lot of, I think even then, going back then, I was not publicly, even probably, I was probably a year or so after that where I started going public about any of my psychic medium stuff. I just, there was a lot of reasons for it. And, because you were kind of been aware of each other. We haven't met, but we're aware of each other. That for years I was kind of known as the science girl, right? The Scully of the, and so and then I'm teaching at the colleges regularly and so on and so forth. And so a lot of it, believe it or not, as much as the crazy stuff you talk about, right? All the ghost and multiple dimensions and all that kind of stuff that people are listening to. If I would have said, oh, and I'm medium Mary Marshall, and they all would have been like, "Phew," and just like not listened,
Right.
because it was too woo-woo now for like, it doesn't make any sense to you or I, but a lot of people just come in like, what is this stuff all about? So a long time for that. It took me in coming forward. And honestly, it was serious lack of confidence and trust still, even at that point on my part. I was just so worried about getting to doing personal reads for people and having that feeling of like, just that's really heavy responsibility for me. How I was like looking at it's different than like if you're in a ghost investigation. You can kind of do the feel and you can talk about the things. But now you've got somebody's emotions, and they're just, I'm like, I want to make sure I'm really good at this before, I'm out there. I don't want to, what if I would tell somebody something and, I don't want it playing with their heads or something and all that stuff. So yeah, I think it's really interesting though, using it like you did for years on investigations. Something's not going good. You go, well, if we go down there and set some stuff up, I tell them, one of those kind of things. This is the activity we're or something's really dark. And then as you get down there, whatever it is.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, I understand the difference between the touchy-feely and the scientific type stuff. I tell people all the time, my day job is all data, and, Excel spreadsheets and databases and all this. And that's not touchy-feely. That's all fact. So
Right.
there's a fight that goes on with me because I am a fact person. I need facts. So this is on the other side and just going, yeah, this doesn't work. So
I am 100% the same. Yeah, it's like I say, I'm both very right and left brain.
Mhm.
I've done I do accounting, legal, paralegal, those very analytical, logical, and then you have this flip side to it.
Mhm.
And I said that similar as you in that you should see the arguments that go on in my head, kind of a thing, because one side. So even still now, if I'm doing an investigation as a paranormal investigator, I'm doing it as a paranormal, I'm CSIing that stuff, I want the controls, I want this, that, and just approaching it of like, yeah, that's really weird, but that doesn't necessarily make it paranormal.
Correct.
Now, you can have the flip side where you have this other voice in you that's saying something like, well, yeah, it is haunted. And I think, blah, 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 blah is here. But that's two different types of things you're trying to deal with. One is in fact, in proof, and those types of things, very like you were saying, analytical and logical. The other isn't, and it makes it
Yeah.
difficult. That was part of that trusting too on my part, was learning to shut that part down, because in the middle of it, you almost start using yourself as an experiment. You know what I mean? Where it's like, this makes no sense, kind of a thing.
And you'll give yourself a
is
migraine doing that.
right. It's like, this is just weird. And okay, stop questioning how I'm doing this. I'm just a conduit. That's how I really look at it now, is like, I'm just a conduit receiver. I'm not really doing anything except repeating. They're using me, kind of a thing. And I think it's a good way to make sure to always keep your ego in check that way too. I'm not doing anything. I'm just, receiving and repeating information, kind of thing. I'm not the test, the whatever, how it got there. So
Like I said, totally understand. I tell people maybe it's because I'm a Gemini, born under an engineering star, so I'm a little bit weird. but it is what it is, and I'll just let it be. But again, I utilize, some of the abilities I have for work. They don't know it, but that's why sometimes when they ask for a report, it's already halfway ready by the time they ask for it, because I already know it's coming.
Right.
So it does save my butt every once in a while. So, but
And I think too, and you're probably like this as well, for most of my life. I mean, really, again, until, whatever certain point, more recent years of how not realizing how much you're using. Because there's a couple people, one of them is my adult daughter, um, and that, oh my God, it drives me insane. She's one of I'm trying to think, there might be like two people, another person that I know, where I feel blocked. I cannot, I can't read them. And I didn't realize, I mean, that's just an example, but in other things, when you're using it and you don't even realize your whole life you're using it, you're thinking everybody functions this way.
mhm.
It's not like that obvious, something so much that, it's like blatant. Well, how could you not know? Yes, some things, yes. But just that basic, during the course of your life, things that you're doing, how you talk to people, you always seem to ask the right questions. You talk about the right things about yourself, whatever. And you're doing this exchange and don't even realize you're doing it until it gets cut off on something, and all of a sudden it feels like, and not to be meaning this and to be disrespectful to anybody who has a limb missing, but it feels like like a different type of an emotional, I don't even know, mental limb.
Mhm.
If it's just gone, and it's frustrating, and it feels like I'm in the dark.
Yeah, I'm told that a lot, that I can't be read. And maybe it's because I can see stuff in people that I don't want people to see in me. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is, but you know what? Whatever it is, I'm fine with that. I'm fine having a few secrets of myself.
Well, and you know what, too? It kind of leads into another little aspect of it. Because I'm as much as I do work in the public and all that, you know, private person in many ways, right? Just respectfully, I don't think you should. And here we were just talking about we land up doing it unintentionally, but intentionally try to read someone without their permission, because it is an invasion of privacy. It's I don't know. And it also, in a spiritual sense, from, things that I've read or other people that I've talked to, they've said the same kind of thing, is like, you should not everybody, some people are fine, but you should not try to intentionally kind of delve into somebody else's energy or read them, because it can actually have negative effects for the person.
Mhm.
I just think it's a respectful thing. Like, just don't do it. Oh my goodness. I see,
Yeah.
I'm seeing this I don't read things.
Yeah, it's David Glidden.
Yes, you haven't heard from me. I haven't heard from you,
Yeah.
but I have thought about you many times. And I mean that seriously. Like we used to talk more, and now, it seemed like, I think David just got, so popular out there. He just started to forget about, I don't know. I'm just making up stuff now.
Well, we went to his paranormal conference that he had down in Joplin, Missouri, and the Haunting History Paracon, and it was successful. We had a good time. Like I said, I got to be the opening speaker. I don't know what he was thinking. He must have been drinking when he did the schedule. I don't know, but I do tell everybody that he is one of my paranormal kids, and his daughter looks like my granddaughter, which is funny. I showed Ron some pictures yesterday of Addie and Clover, side by side, and Addie just looks like an older Clover. So And so it was a. I wish you could have come. You would have enjoyed it. It was small enough to meet everybody, but big enough to feel significant.
Right. No,
So,
I'm sure he, you know what? I mean, I've known, and it's funny because you said that because sort of feel the same way, about him as like, I feel like I've known him since he was a kid, even though I don't think that I did. I don't even know how old he was or how old he is, but just a lot of talent. I think that has a lot of talent in different areas and just was always really, kind of on his side, at least for the win, so to say, of like, good for you, whatever it is, good for you,
yeah.
kind of a thing.
Our David Glidden Mutual Admiration Society.
Yeah. So now I have to make sure I don't know. I can't think quick enough to say something insulting just to take away from it.
Oh,
Because he would expect nothing less.
That's okay.
Oh,
We can come up with a lot of things that are insulting, but that's not what we're gonna do today. We do that privately or on his show when he has a show. Because I'll say stuff during his show, and you can tell when he reads it because he makes a face. I can always get him, but yeah, we had a good time down
Well,
there.
I'm glad it went well. And everybody had a really good time. And that's a pretty good because that was in down right, Missouri.
Yeah, we down in Joplin, Missouri.
Oh, in Oh, okay.
So
Actually, I was there. I think I was in Joplin for a different one several years back. I wonder if okay, we'll get off this topic because this is not what the show is about, but I think that might be where I met David. Was like several years ago at a different thing that was at like
you didn't come to
Elk
Kansas.
Lodge or something like that. It was held at.
Was it the
Joplin.
one in Kansas? Oh, yeah, that's where this one was held at. It was held at the Elks Lodge as well.
But
it could have been.
It could have been Kansas City too.
Yeah, we also had one in one of the Kansas City Elks Lodge. No, that was a Mason.
I don't think so. I think if it's out of the two, it would be Joplin.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's possible.
Was it possibly ran by somebody else?
Oh yeah, it wasn't David running
Was it run by
I might have met him there. What did you say?
Was it run by a woman? The conference?
Oh, did she do it? She's an author.
He says 2009 at a campground was the last one in Joplin.
Oh, well then.
Who knows?
I was wrong.
You know what? We won't worry about it because we don't know. So because I know we have quite a few in Kansas City. Hell, we have one every other month in Independence, Missouri now, which is good because I have some people from that conference coming on in a few weeks. So yeah, but yeah, like I said, I was so upset when you couldn't make it to Utica. No, not upset, disappointed because, I thought it would be great to get to meet you and hang out and find out more about, the Paranormal MD. So how did you get the name Paranormal MD?
I swear, if people did not know me by this, I would change it by this point in time. It's like when it started 20 plus years ago. And I do get asked and totally understand it, but I say this all the time. Because everybody's like, and I go, no, I am not a medical doctor, but let's think about this. There's a reason. And I'll finish it with, it's my initials was where that came from. And I said, well, there's no such thing. I mean, a paranormal medical, that doesn't even make sense, but it was a cutesy little thing because it was a play on my initials at the time that I was using. And plus, like, I randomly had gotten these like DR license plates and my initials were MD and, all this kind of stuff. So it just started. I mean, it just started like, oh, people are doing this website thing. Oh, I'll put one up. I got to get a name, you do some sort of name. And then the family would joke and say, oh yeah, you definitely like, because my initials at the time, first and last name. Oh yeah, you're definitely paranormal. So it was just a whole kitschy play on thing. Who knew I would have continued to go and do what I'm doing. And I, and now it's like, and I keep thinking, and somebody's like, okay, change it, because I do have also a company that I'm filtering other, things through and doing, called Paranormal Protagonist Inc. And I'm like, I should just get rid of the MD, Paranormal MD. But like, tell you, like when they'll come up and I meet them, they're like, oh my God, you have no idea. Every time somebody says Mary Marshall, the Paranormal MD, it just comes out together. So I'm like, all right, it's staying. I'm just keeping it.
I think that might be what mine is now too, because of the Paranormal Pride. They just see Denise Pridemore or Ron and Denise Pridemore, and the first thing they go with it, Paranormal Pride. They don't even go with Pridemore Paranormal anymore, which is fine. I don't care, because I don't share anything on that page anymore. It's not a big deal. But the talking to people like I'm talking to you, this is the part that I really enjoy of all the paranormal stuff, is meeting the people, hearing their stories, and bringing their stories to everybody else. I'm a very social person. So this is my way of being social when I do a job all day working from home that I can't be social. So
right.
This is
and
it.
you meet a lot of great people. When I was back doing radio, just met a lot of really great people that I'm still, a lot of them I'm still in contact with. And it just, at the time, it's like where you go. It was starting because I started a land station in Wisconsin. And then it was like, okay, at the forefront of the internet. Oh my God, what we used to have to go through just it was like, you have to have this. I don't even remember. Like, I had to have this into the computer and that connected in and and the whole, like a whole sound system, but it was a whole way to connect. And just learning like how to handle it. Do you go, is it going to be more like traditional radio, which, talk show radio, but doing, or, it's completely different. Oops, sorry about that. And so, yeah, it's kind of was an interesting thing trying to navigate the whole internet radio thing. Now it's for years now, but it's been so easy.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love that it's a much more casual feel to it as well.
I think it depends on whose show you're on to how it feels. Because I know I've been on some shows that they're very strict at how everything goes. They want you to submit the questions you want them to ask you. And I'm like,
yeah.
No, I can't, so
yeah. You're right.
I've
You get like people who are like, they got like a whole bunch of things that they give you rules on.
Yep. Or they send you a list of the questions they're going to ask you so that you can be prepared. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to answer the question when you ask it, regardless of what you've already told me you're going to ask. But in my case, I try to make sure that the guests and the listeners get to have, their questions, that you get to answer the questions that everybody sends. So even if I ask the question at the beginning of the show and somebody comes in late and asks that same question, I'm going to ask it again, because the listener is more important than me.
Right.
So I don't know. I've seen it a lot of different ways. I've had some that will tell me things like, you can't talk about this, even though that's the reason they asked me to be on the show, was because of something I've said, but we can't talk about it. I'm like, okay, then what are we going to talk about?
Right.
But like with you, I didn't even have the chance to ask you, is there anything you don't want me to, anything you want me to try to avoid? I just assume most of the time there's not. I've only had two people say, these are the things I want to avoid. I was like, okay, I doubt it's going to come up, and they didn't. But like I said, if it did, I would just steer it away in another direction. But, I've been doing this 7.5 years, and it's just gotten easier and easier. But I don't know how I'd do it any different, to be honest. I have to be the Denise that I am. and
Well,
scripting it wouldn't help.
and that's what makes the difference. I think that's what's been kind of neat about, like, again, first you're starting internet, just like radio, as they're calling it, because it's just audio. And then we started getting the video in more and then just the whole podcast feel
Mhm.
of things. And I think that giving everybody that's what makes it your show, is the difference of who you are. And I think that goes for anybody doing this, is that's what you bring to the table, is your individuality, your perspective, and that's what carries the show forward. Because the thing is, I found when I was doing it, I really geared it to give it to the guests, and started to realize halfway, a couple years in or whatever, of like, oh, your listeners are listening because of what you're bringing to the show as well.
Mhm.
So like, Denise, what you're bringing, that's why they're tuning in as well.
Well, they
'Cause they
better
could
tune in a lot more.
Well, that's good.
I'm sorry, sarcasm's my first
We
language.
bribe our viewers.
We bribe our viewers.
Yeah.
We bribe them with the guests that we bring on. So there you go. You're a bribe tool. So, yeah, like I said, I've got a problem with sarcasm. It's my first language, and it just is what it is. And I told Ron, I said, that's probably from being born in Baltimore, raised in New Jersey and Virginia. You come up with all this stuff to get through all of it.
Do you have siblings as well?
Oh yeah, I'm the oldest.
Oh, you're the oldest. See, that's interesting, because I was going to say, being the youngest, I probably had that kind of sharper, because you have to. It's like a survival instinct of being the youngest, of just having to be quick-witted and come back with something. I have three other siblings. The closest in my age is 7. I have one that's like 13, and one that was 2 of them have passed away, but 13 and 11 years older. And I still, up until my sister just passed last year, but I would dread, like, her and my brother would get together. Didn't matter how old I got. Oh my God, the oldest, and he's in with the oldest, and they're gonna just start ripping on me. I know, whatever's gonna happen.
My sisters. So I'm the oldest of 3 daughters, and my mom, when I was 10, became a single mom. And so she had to be prepared with all of us, but my mom was dating. So I used that sarcasm to root out her boyfriends. If they couldn't take the girl with the sarcastic jokes, things like what starts with an F and ends with a CK. Yes, I did leave a letter out. And I'd go, fire truck. By this time, my mom's already all bright red, going, oh my God, my daughter just did that to my boyfriend. And, half the time those boyfriends didn't come back. But I saved my mom some time.
I was going to say, that's good, because if they can't, that's not even, yeah.
If they can't handle a 12-year-old girl, then they got a problem. But yeah, it was a survival mechanism for me. But my mom said, she goes, you were like that with your dad when you were little. She goes, you are always the first one to say something. And, I took everybody for their word, and I used their words against them. And, and again, like it might be growing up in New Jersey and Baltimore and Virginia and West Virginia, and just going out to all these places and hearing all these people talk. Maybe I just picked up something somewhere along the way.
Where about in New Jersey?
I lived in Patterson.
Is that like north or?
Yeah, it's about 25 minutes. Without traffic, it's about 25 minutes to New York.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I had seen a really small, my sister used to live there, and in like years ago in the Linden area. And so you get this kind of like bubble, like you'll travel around to that. And we would go like on road trips and stuff, but back when, and just go all over the place. But I did not realize, like, you're hearing New Jersey, the Garden State, and you're like, what? But in traveling, and it happened. It's really quite pretty up. I'm assuming it was up north that we were. There's actually really, really pretty, lovely parts of the state.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then and very kind of rolling too. That I was like, oh, I thought we'd gone into someplace else, driving, kind of. And I'm saying just kind of the hills and rolling, that way. And I was like, oh, now I get it why it's called the Garden
Yeah, you
State.
kind of have to get off Interstate 95. Once you get off the New Jersey Turnpike, it's a lot better.
Right.
But, I mean, we used to go camping in Cape May, New Jersey. And people go, "Why
Oh,
do you go camping at the beach?" I was like, well, because there's a whole bunch of campgrounds inland from there. And so we hung out in Cape May all the time.
Oh my God. There was, I again, a bazillion years ago. I mean, this had to be probably like maybe 25 years ago. It was like Cape May was just kind of coming back. This how long ago it was. You know what I mean? And I loved it. I love the architecture of the houses there. And just that whole, and which for me, I'm a Midwesterner. So the, ocean and just, it was really cool. I really have fond memories of Cape May.
Yeah, me too. It was just one of those places that we just really liked it, and going to the beach and hanging out at the campground and seeing all the old, there's a lighthouse there. Well, actually there's two. And we, like I said, we'd go all over the place. Of course, this was back in 77 to 76 through 79 that we were going. So it's a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, that's even further. So I don't even know, again, because I'm not from the area, I don't know what it was like. I know when I visited, there was some old lady who was like 100 years old or 101 or something, like, who lived in the center of Cape May town or whatever. And she was still, she was still alive. I think she died right within a year or so after, but who had all this like history on just the whole area. That's again the difference, I think, for a lot of people who are on the East Coast, is the history is so vast, and all the different peoples that came through, and just how things changed, and all that sort of thing. Again, to the Midwest, by the time you're getting to me, it's later. A whole bunch of stuff had happened already out east, 100 years previous to where we came about. But yeah, I think it's just pretty cool out there. And Philadelphia was kind of fun, and Boston.
And Boston, Ron went to Boston for work once, and he goes, "Everything out here is so old."
What I didn't realize is, you don't realize, again, even from, it's sort of like when you see something in a movie or in television, or even for that matter, you could say a person, like the actors, and you're like, oh, and then you meet them and they're like, this really gorgeous guy, and he's like 5'2" and actor in real life. He's just a short little skinny thing, or something. But I felt that
Mark
way.
Wahlberg.
How
He's
tall
really
is he?
short. He's not tall.
All right, I was gonna say, I think he's like probably at least 5'8" or something.
No, I think he was 5'6", because I don't think he was
All
any
right, now
taller.
we need a fact check. You have somebody next to you can Google. Just got
There's a big crowd of people, and we couldn't see him.
We saw him in Vegas when they were opening up Wahlburgers at Bally's. So
14-year-old girls were towering over him.
Here we go. Mark Wahlberg.
I said, who is this? I didn't know who he was.
5'8". There you go. See?
Yeah.
They
Stretched it.
Yeah, maybe he's lying. Maybe they measured him with his shoes on. Maybe measured the top of his hair.
His high heels on.
All right, so now we went off on this. I have to comment further. That's the other thing, is when you start seeing the female leads against these guys, the Tom Cruises, who's like, he's like 5'6", or so and so is 5'5", 5'6", and you look at, and the females are like coming up to them. They have got to be like 4'9", petite, tiny little things because they look, they're matching up with these guys. And then, because I actually remember reading several times over the years, not so much now, but it was that way, of the tall actors who are like 6'2", they were too big to cast because that was too tall.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, and so you knew then for the females, if they were tall, for sure they were not going to get any parts,
Yeah.
back in the day, kind of a thing. Gosh, I don't even know why I went down this, but something probably to do. How did this start?
You're probably in your mind seeing Tom Cruise at his 5'7" and Nicole Kidman at 5'10" and a half and going, what's wrong here? Because I mean, that was, it's an odd thing when you see the woman being that much taller than the man. But
I think it's getting easier for the men and the women in that situation now.
Yeah, I think so, because it's not like it was in the 60s, 70s, even 80s. I mean, everything has changed so much. And that's just, I mean, that's talking about acting. In just everyday life, we're not seeing that the woman is having to look for a guy who's taller than her, because women are much more confident than they used to be, and it's not a big deal.
And that confidence, I think, translates to where they used to feel awkward or uncomfortable being the taller, like something was wrong with them. Where because of that confidence, they don't feel it, because like you see it, like the younger generation now, Tom Holland, Spider-Man, and Zendaya, his girlfriend, he's a shorter guy, and she's a model, was a model, I think, professionally. And so she's taller too. I think she's like 5'11". I don't know.
Well, maybe the guys like it because it's beneficial to them to be closer to what they want. Yeah. Sorry. There you go.
Buffet. It's like being at the.
Yeah. Why not?
So I don't know.
But it is. I think it goes for confidence on both sides, men and women. We're not trying to meet this cookie cutter thing that we used to try to meet back in the day. And so, and I think people are finding out, hey, I can be happy being shorter than this person, and I can be happy being taller than this person, whether it's male or female. So,
well, the age thing, that was a big thing too,
and
because that used to be it where women got called like around the 2000s, let's just say 90s, maybe even 90 to 2000s, cougars, right? If you dated younger. I know for myself, when I dated younger, and I had dated somebody that was like 10 years younger than me. Oh my God, the family. And you would have thought, like, I don't know, I was dating a Martian or something like that, kind of a thing. The age thing. And the funny part is that some of the people who were doing it were like, let's say that even my generation, but also older than me, like my sister-in-law, like her parents, they're 10 years apart. The mom's younger, the 10 years. Yeah. Nobody ever says anything. No. 10, 15 years. What's the problem? The guys, or you look to Hollywood and you get all the, I can't even think of all the guys, but pretty much most of them.
What about Robert Kraft's new wife? From the guy who owns the Patriots. He got a new wife. She's considerably younger than him.
Like 30 years or something.
What do you think? 30 years?
I don't know.
Ron's shaking his head over there.
I'd say at least 25.
At least, there you go. At least 25.
Same age.
Mike, you know who just popped when you said that? Michael Douglas and
Catherine
Zeta-Jones.
Yep.
Yeah, they're like 25, 30.
Yeah.
I mean, but anyway, all of this could be done. It was all fine throughout history. you know,
For the
but
man.
as soon as the women started to go, oh, I'm going to date somebody, 7 or 8 years younger or 10 years, I don't care if it's 15. You know what I mean? Depending
Yeah.
on how old they are when
Well, as long
that
as
all
they're
happens.
adults, yeah. As long
Right,
as they're adults.
exactly. I mean, within reason here for both sides. But yeah, it was like it was a crime. And
Yeah.
so I would joke and I say, I was a trailblazer. I'll tell my daughter now I was a trailblazer because when it wasn't acceptable, it happened.
You remember when Elizabeth Taylor was dating the younger guys, and oh boy, they couldn't
Wait,
talk about anything else on any of the news other than she's dating this young guy. And it's like, so what?
yeah,
Even back then. But yeah, it was what was good for the goose wasn't good for the gander.
absolutely, 100%.
And
Yeah.
so, and of course, guys look at it with probably one of the most haunted places in the world probably now is, Hugh Hefner's house. I don't know with what, I don't want to know, but he made it to where it seemed like that's what every guy wanted, was a young, skinny 19-year-old.
Yeah.
Man, Ron said that lucky guy.
As you just said, 19, who popped into my brain, his limit. So far, every single person he's dated, when they turn 26, they're no longer dating. And he's saying it's not because of the age. Oh my gosh.
No, I know who you're talking. They were talking about him the other day.
Yeah.
Who?
I can't remember.
Ron heard
the blonde. He was blonde. He did Departed, the movie Departed, and recently they just did
chat room. Come on, fill us in on the name.
No, it's like I can't. All right, anybody listening, we're gonna start. I'm just gonna start giving you clues.
I mean, I know that.
All right, so let's look up the movie Departed. I know, because we're not. I'm like, my brain is not working. Oh my gosh, this is gonna.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
it's hysterical. I do this with a girlfriend on the phone. Like, we'll be talking about something and we do the same thing. We both of us are like looking it up. But yeah, Leonardo, the guy's like 50. I think he's going to be 50 and he's still dating 20. As soon as they turn 26, they don't date anymore.
Maybe it's an intelligence thing.
I think it's a maturity. I think it's a maturity level. It's not that, they're so mature. I mean, not saying that they may or may not be. I don't know them. But I think that it's probably a different type of, he's whatever maturity level on. Because I don't care if it's male or female. There's a certain point of, he doesn't have any experiences. That's how I used to explain it too, about whoever it is that you're dating. Mm-hmm. Whichever side that is, it's about commonality. It's what do you have in common? Because let's say you can be a 45-year-old mom with a 2-year-old home, and you could be a 32-year-old man with a 2-year-old at home. Mm-hmm. You're in the same place in life. You know what I mean? And so it's about commonality, where your experiences, when that. And you look at somebody like Leonardo DiCaprio, he doesn't have any. I mean, he's probably in the same place as a 30-year-old in many ways.
Or we don't know. So it just seems odd that you brought him up, and it's like we've been watching him his entire career at this point. And of course, I don't even
since. Eating Gilbert Grape, wasn't that his breakout? He was like 14, or maybe he was older, but he was somewhere around 16 or something.
So let's get back to some of the paranormal stuff, as opposed to the abnormal stuff.
Right.
So, how did you determine that you wanted to be part of the paranormal community?
I think it's just a progression. that you go through. You go through different, experiences in life. A lot of them for me might have been like psychic or medium type of things and not quite understanding that, but other things as well. And that sort of just leads you with questions. And again, this is pre-internet for all intensive purposes. So you're having to go to libraries to try to research. I mean, internet's amazing, since then, kind of a thing. But and then it's just been a whole progression. I mean, I guess I stay open to opportunities, see what comes this way, learning experiences, and just sort of segued into one thing after the other into doing the investigating. Because, like, when we started doing it, you didn't have all these pay and play locations like we have now. I mean, I call them that, but you know what I'm talking about. All the places, right? And you just go and do it. It was home investigations. There was probably like 5 that you knew of across the country where you could, that were openly, oh, you can come here and pay us and do an investigation kind of thing. So it just, keeps growing in that way of what you're doing, how you're doing. And then I think really early on, after getting, even trying to originally, remember trying to kind of hook up with a paranormal team. There was this site. It wasn't a website. It was a social site that, again, this is back, oh gosh, maybe MySpace days or MySpace days, somewhere in that area, where it was some sort of just paranormal network where people could start talking to each other. And then trying to get with other people locally was a big challenge. So thank God for the internet and all for that reason, because it really brought a lot of people together and started a lot of, getting things out there and conversations and, that weren't there before. But anyway, yeah, trying to find it and see what other people are doing, and then just kind of, keeps sort of changing. I've been really fortunate that, I changed early from going to, okay, I'm trying to prove paranormal exists. I know it exists. It became more about, how is this happening? How is this? This is impossible to everything we know. So if we can start to find reasons for why certain things may be happening, we might be able to develop more techniques or equipment or whatever to try to, continue on the path. And to get all the generations behind us to not have to do it 101 ways the wrong way, because you can look to those in front of you. And so just that kind of thing too with it all, and just how it grows and changes, where you're going. And I've enjoyed taking, 5 years at a time to kind of focus. I mean, I look at it as the kind of the staple. When I say paranormal, people think of ghosts, shadow people, that type of thing. I personally think everything from ufology to cryptozoology falls under that paranormal word, an umbrella. And it really does. However, when I went and really started hanging out with MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, and trying to learn what they're about and what they're doing, and getting, educated in how their investigation and so on and so forth. I learned, don't say the word paranormal, because, like, we're not paranormal. Like that was like a bad thing or something. This isn't paranormal. Well, it is in the true sense of what the word is. It is. It's without current scientific explanation. That's all paranormal means.
Yeah.
And the same thing for I can't say widespread cryptozoology, but couple different creatures, and one in particular, Bigfoot, getting into that. And that just kind of happened in a different way. Going out with a friend. Oh, what's my crazy friend doing out in the woods? Let's see what he's into. And had the most incredible first time out light anomaly experiences that I've ever had in my life. And then just more of a phantom type experience where something was, hearing it and loudly coming up and you turn around, nothing's there. And it was very bright. We were on path at the time, but those type of things. And that drew me to keep going back out. Well, that was enough to start pulling me into what's the Bigfoot world all about, Sasquatch, and what do these people believe? And the one thing that I really early on, found out is, and started talking about at conferences, is we really needed to communicate better with all the different fields. Because I recall sitting at a table with a gentleman who was, him and his wife were, and I'll say it, and some people hate this term, but I'm just going to say it anyway, Bigfooter, he's a Bigfooter. And he was talking about this experiences, and I'm going to just, condense it down. So we're out there and I see this red pair of eyes, and then I just see and feel this jolt of energy pass through me, and was actually continued to talk about it as it was a Bigfoot, as if that experience was a Bigfoot related experience. And I remember thinking, if that's almost word for word, if this guy had told the story, but it took place in a haunted house, people would have immediately thought, oh, it's a ghost, it's a demon, it's a this, it's a, and so on. I mean, there's so many crossovers, experiences. And I still feel that way, honestly, about like a lot of times in the woods that people attribute things to it being a Bigfoot. I think that my experience out in the wood is coming across it all. I have come across ghosts in the same area, ghosts with EVP and those type of things, as well as UFOs, seeing them and using that against, not just with my eyes, but with phone apps. You can check flight trackers and, other types of apps where you can see, where is a satellite in the sky, or is it an iridium flare? So it can't be anything else. You want to get rid of anything that it could be that made sense. And as well as, not me personally, but, people I've been with who will say that they've experienced seeing a Bigfoot. Now, another few people have talked about their experience in seeing Bigfoot, and then in the very next breath, still referring to Bigfoot, talking about saying this really large, wide shadow that just moves super fast between trees. But they didn't say the word shadow. But I can't tell you what it looked like, but it was this size. It might have been a shadow person. So I think sometimes we do get some misidentifications because people tend to go out and investigate whatever they're investigating and look for something in particular. I'm looking for ghosts. I'm looking for Bigfoot. Yeah. And rather than just being open to, the Sesame Street rule of, one of these things is not like the other. Anything that's not in the right place. Let's take a look at that and, see.
When you were with your friend in the woods, did he or she at that time, did they say whether or not they felt like Bigfoot was, terrestrial being, earthbound, or was he dimensional being?
Here's the thing. The one person who I really was out there for, probably Jay Bachochin. He's done 2 documentaries. The second one was just released on Amazon. I should do this as
It was just a few days ago. So
yeah,
I had him on.
Oh, did you?
I've had Jay on twice. I met him in Van Meter.
Okay, so you just had him a couple. So I don't want to talk for him then, but we went out there for pretty much like a little about 2 years straight. And so it was just like constant, because I probably was like at that time, like the only knucklehead that's going to go out when it's 9 degrees, kind of a thing. But it's great. It's great weather because you can see better. But I think even watching him, his journey, and where he started and where he is now, is different. A lot of people started out with thinking, oh, this is some sort of, bipedal hominid, the undiscovered species type of thing. For me personally, I think because of coming from the background with so many with the ufology already, but also with where I had gone with the paranormal. Like, I'm terrible at knowing all the ghost stories, right? But I can sit there and talk about multiverse and multiple dimensions and gravitational field distortion, and start looking into all the sciences as it may apply for real. So the reason I bring that up is because I think right from the beginning, I tried to keep an open mind. I will tell you that initially, as ridiculous of me as this is that here you're going chasing ghosts and shadow people, right? And somebody would say Bigfoot, and I'd be like, okay, eye roll. Bigfoot, yeah, they've gone too far woo-woo for me, but you learn and you stay open. And I obviously don't feel that way now about it. I think I've always felt that it was interdimensional.
A lot of
For
people
me,
do.
personal.
Well, I tell people this back in 72, 73, when Bigfoot made the news. We still had a black and white TV, and I remember sitting there in my Patterson, New Jersey house going, he's an alien. And my parents remembered that. My mom, she goes, I remember you saying that back in 72.
It makes sense, because then that explains when people go, oh, well, why don't we have any physical evidence? Why don't we have this? You could ask those same questions about ghosts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And where do ghosts exist? Another dimension. Bigfoot exists in another dimension. Where do ETs, extraterrestrial? They're not from this planet. Yes, they could be from another planet, but they could just as easily be interdimensional in a copy universe or another universe that we just don't have, ready access to 24/7.
Yeah. And to be more accurate, I didn't say alien back then. I said Martian. because that's what we
right
as back then. Marvin Martian was a huge deal, and but that's what I said way back then. And the thing is I kept saying it for years and years, and it was a joke. I thought I was joking around, and all these years now, now I'm involved in the paranormal, and I have people telling me the theory that I had when I was I was barely 7 years old, telling people that Bigfoot was a Martian. How do you there was no validation. You couldn't validate that back then, but apparently I was big into Bigfoot back then, didn't know it, or aliens. And but the question is how do we know that Bigfoot, extraterrestrials, ghosts are in a different dimension? How do we know that there's a different dimension?
You know what? That's one of the reasons, though, why we look at some of the things with the equipment that we do. Why do we look at, electromagnetic fields? Because we're trying to see what atmospherically can change. We are not scientists. None of us doing this are scientists. We're doing our best that we can with what we can have, and often what we can afford equipment-wise. Because wouldn't it be great if we could all do like the shows, anybody who's out there, and when I go out other times through the years, or in general, if you're going out to the Kettle Moraine looking for Bigfoot, I have found so many other types of anomalous behavior and just things out there. Oh, it'd be great to take ground penetrating radar. Oh yeah, if we could only afford that, and you have to have the legal rates because it's a state, park as well. But so a lot of these, I think, where people, land up going like, well, how do we know that? Well, we're looking to see those, and those sometimes we have found some changes, like temperature changes or barometric pressure changes. One of the things, interestingly enough, is there was an experience actually with Jay, and that's not in any of the documentaries because it's kind of like a side weird, like, I don't know what the heck this is kind of experience. But we were out one night. He had thought that he had saw a, how he described it, I think, was like a juvenile infant, kind of more like a monkey than a Bigfoot in the distance. I did not see this. Now it's literally probably like, it's really cold. It's probably January, Midwest here. So it's probably, 10 degrees outside. And when he was pointing it out to me, though, I did also then see a red orb. Now this is in the distance. So as we're sitting on this tree trunk that was downed a tree, and it was a big size, trunk, that's frozen to the ground. And I'm got the camera and I'm doing, okay, Jay, give me a recount of what did you just see? And I literally at a certain point just had to stop and said, do you feel that? And he's like, what? And we were like almost at the same time. And then we were like, we both knew it wasn't the other person, but this tree trunk log was vibrating. And I don't know how else to describe that, except that's what it felt like, to the point of it got so strong that it was like, I literally stopped and it's like, you felt that one, right? And he's like, yeah, I thought that was you. And I thought that was you. Well, the rest of that night proceeded on, and we lost audio. But it was interesting. It wasn't like just, oh, you lose the audio. It was like static. It was like there was static over what we were trying to talk. We had equipment malfunction. Even then, the strangest thing I think that night that happened was Jay had, I don't know which version he had, but a thermal camera on his phone at that time. And he did his thing. He's never had this happen in several years before or since, as far as I'm aware of. Those have GPS on them. So you can take them. This thing clocked 60 miles away from where we were. When he got home, it's something he noticed. He's like messaging, I just see this. And this took us on top of everything else that went on this night. So the reason I brought up this whole long story is sometimes it's not always just a Bigfoot thing, but what can cause it atmospherically. I said, here's the thing. Something was making that log, that tree trunk itself vibrate, but it wasn't coming from the ground. What I did note, and I believe Jay noted it as well, we did not feel it from our feet or through our feet. We felt it from the log, the tree trunk we were sitting on. So now you have to question what could cause that thing to vibrate. And this literally happened right after his sighting, seeing an orb. We hadn't seen the UFO yet, and had all the other stuff happen yet. So I go, it's either got to be like we were targeted with either something like an sonic, ultrasonic, or electromagnetic, something that could excite the molecules in that tree trunk enough to create it to start vibrating. What could happen? What could cause that? Why would you do that? And so I think it just goes, all of this that's why we're looking at all the different dimensions of things. When we go into dimensions, looking at black holes, Hawkins radiation, information is still there. So you do compare it to what we do know in science at this point, and it's a really good case that this could be interdimensional. And here's the thing. People think that when you say that, or if you're saying multiverse, that you're, talking like science fiction. It's not. This is based on fact. Hadron Collider in CERN, Switzerland, the main purpose for this what would be the main purpose that there's billions at this point has been put into this thing, as a sense of atom smasher. They did this, and all of a sudden, some of what they did disappeared.
Mhm.
The whole point of originally that Hadron Collider was looking for other dimensions. And they have found enough scientific proof to state that that seems to be the case, that there is for that existence. So anyway, I mean, it just, a lot of it is just looking at what we can look at.
Yeah. Well, if it had been in the summer and the tree trunk was vibrating, I'd be wondering if there was a beehive in there.
Right. This was like dead of
it was in
winter.
January, so we know that the only place bees exist in the wintertime is someplace warm or the basement of the Sally house. That's it.
Oh, there you go.
In the Midwest. I mean, in the Midwest,
Yeah.
that's the only place I found bees in the middle of January was the basement of the Sally house, which shouldn't have been there to begin with.
I had and I always say it's funny because it doesn't help the case when I describe it this way, but a Tinkerbell light, but it looked like it looks like when you look at water and that glistening and you get those little like those really bright diamonds off the water from the sun.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of really tiny, and sat there watching this thing just move. It was literally probably 5 degrees outside. This again was when we were in wind, and I love it because no, we know that's not an insect. This wasn't some misidentification on my part. There's no insects. What the heck was that? I don't know.
Well, we're getting ready to we're getting freeze warnings now, so we'll have less bugs anyway. So,
Yeah.
Plus it's already snowed up there in Wisconsin.
Yeah, we had some in here in Illinois already too.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
So, you know what? We're going to take a quick break if Carl's ready to be Mr. Producer and do that. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
For the past 6.5 years, Paula and Gavin have traveled the U.S. to investigate the mysterious, the unknown, and the paranormal. They were always outsiders, only able to experience events through their own eyes. On their next journey, they joined forces with 6 investigative paranormal teams across the country to explore their local legends side by side. Join us as we learn the stories, meet the teams, and gather the evidence to determine if these tales are truth or legend.
Hi, everybody. Brandon here, host of Shaman Sundays. Join me every Sunday as we discuss everything from the paranormal to self-healing. We'll sprinkle in a couple of fun guests along the way. Show airs 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central every Sunday right here on the Bill of Rights Network. #born. Join me, won't you?
Hi, everybody. I'm Rex.
And I'm Shane.
We have a new show on the Bill of Rights Network. It is called Music, Movies, and Maybe More.
We explore bands that we've heard of that a lot of people haven't, that we feel like you should know about.
And we do the same with movies. There's a lot of movies out there that we know about that other people should know about as well.
And as for the maybe more part, you never know what else we can come up with.
So, on the Bill of Rights Network, every Saturday night, live at 7 p.m. Central Time, music, movies, and maybe more will be on. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you there. Now we'll return you back to
The views expressed here are solely the opinions of the hosts and the guests, and not necessarily those of the network, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc. If you have an issue with the content of the show, please contact the show host. Thank you.
Apparently, Ron has a problem. He wants to tell the show host.
I'll call her.
So why not? You know.
Sorry. Did I make it in time back?
And if you have a problem, call 1-800 Bite Me. Yes. And that's only to Ron, nobody else.
Now I wanted to see what happens if you dial that number.
Well, you're not going to get anything because it's not enough numbers. That's the first thing. So maybe if it was one of those little, like if you text it, maybe you'll get something. I don't know.
Yeah, then that could be a whole different.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't want to know where that's
I
going.
I didn't even think of that. So.
Well, that's what happens when you work for a telephone company. You kind of just know. But I guess I can't say I work for a telephone company anymore. I work for a technology company now. So, yeah. But we do have a question here. And I know the name looks weird, but his name's Luke. He goes, so how come you never seen someone get Bigfoot on a drone with a thermal cam? He's just asking.
For the same reason that I don't. Here's the thing. I think that you don't catch. Well, first of all, there are bunches out there. The problem is, and I am like the first number one skeptic of all the stuff that you see on the internet, right? You don't know. I have had people, and this could go for Bigfoot or ghost stuff, and seen, here, can you tell me about this? Where was it taken? What time of the day? Who was there? What was going on? I don't know these people. And it's a sad, but it is incredible what they can do now with that, screen CGI, look at, I could, if I had the right filter, I could look like Angelina, Jolie right now, and nobody would know, so it's really is hard to tell like what's legit and what's not. I think that a lot of it, and this is going to sound probably crazy, but to some people, but I think that there's some type of cloaking as well. One is they're coming in and out quite quickly, just as in the same aspect as ghosts do. That's, from my research, and that's my opinion on it, that there, a lot of times it is now you see them, now you don't type of scenario. And if in fact that they are a type of ET, they would exist not normally in our dimension, in our realm. They can come in and out of, but they don't live here full time. So combining that with some of the other things, I think that you just would not, it makes a case for why you would not see them. Because because here's the thing, the people who are in the camp of, it's a bipedal hominid that just is a species we haven't discovered yet. Seriously, this is a 10-foot, 12-foot ginormous creature. And they're like, well, we're discovering new things all the time. Well, one of the largest mammals, which is about the size of a house cat, I think I have to update this because I think there was a more recent one now. But in the early 2000s was a discovery. But this thing's the size of a house cat, a mammal. This is not a 12-foot, Bigfoot. And so I do have a hard time, because if they were living here, they were in fact just a species we haven't discovered, then there is absolutely no reason why we shouldn't find feces or hair in legitimate amounts. Not, people say, oh, I find it, but when you get it tested, at best, we have some cases to where the DNA doesn't match anything on file. Again, not proving or disproving, so I just don't think, I think it has to be an extraterrestrial type of thing versus it not. Because it's more than anything, I think people are experiencing something. I think the question is, what is it that they're experiencing? Sometimes I do think it's misidentification. A lot of times, and this is where I'm not going to say a popular thing, but a lot of times people, it's conjecture. They're just they're skipping from A, B, C. They're going A, B, and skipping to Z and leaving out the whole middle there of what this is. And I just had this happen again. I was at an event, and the person next to me was a Bigfooter who had interest in that more than anything else. And I like to hear people's stories. And this is going to sound, I'm not trying to be personally critical, but at a certain point he says, well, because they eat this and they eat that. And how do you know that?
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah. How do you know that? And he's sort of like, well, and when I really, kind of pushed it, he's like, well, we don't know, but like we put this out or we did this and then it was gone. But you have no photos of any other animals eating it either, nor the Bigfoot. The same thing, which is not a popular thing. I'm on the outskirts of this, but is this tree branch breaking thing.
That's okay. I'm with you there.
No one.
Could they not fall that way? I'm sorry. Could they just not fall that way?
And then they can't, because again, some of these areas are forested. So they are getting, done. And then there are disease plants, this, that, and the other. There's a thing called sudden drop limb. It's this weird thing that happens where limbs do exactly that. They just break and drop.
Nobody walks in the woods either.
Yeah.
What?
They act like nobody walks in the woods.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these places are not far off the road.
Well, and sometimes I get it when they're saying, but look at that break occurs, 20 feet up. That's not natural. Or the TP thing. You get the crossing. But again, like, how many people have walked through there? I go to a local forest preserve by me and I watch the stones multiply out there. But, I don't think the stones are doing them by themselves. People are adding to this pile.
Somebody's doing it. So Dara, that was what happened at McPike Mansion when the branch fell on your car. It was Bigfoot making it fall from the tree onto your car and break your windshield. It was not natural.
Right. And here's the thing. Could some of the things that they're saying, could it be Bigfoot? Well, yes, it could be. But there is nothing really indicating that it's not naturally occurring, or other animals. I mean, you've got the raccoon who's like, oh, I'm going to jump. Oh, that was a bad move. And the 20 feet up, that branch breaks. Whatever, and here's the thing. Oh my gosh, they're going to, and I'm sorry, I'm saying it out there right now because you're going to be mad at me for saying these things. But
we have to be critical.
But it is, because if you're not,
where we come from. You mean both you and I come from, we have to be critical of this because it's not in our nature to not be critical of data.
And again, could these things certainly be? Yes, they can. I can't tell you that they're not, but I can some of it. But I can certainly tell you that making that big jump. Here's a different thing to get away from the Bigfoot. Let's talk about ghosts, orbs. There has been a 10-fold increase of orbs showing up in photos since digital photography. That is not by coincidence. it's kind of thing. Digital, you go back to film, and now all of a sudden there's this big jump. Then the other thing with it is that people not realizing, well, but it wasn't, I took a night shot, but it wasn't raining. Did you use a flash or something? Yeah, but it wasn't raining or anything. It doesn't have to be. There's moisture out there. We are 70%, humans are 70% water. We need moisture. If it's completely dry, we couldn't breathe. You know what I mean? Like if there was no moisture. So it's there. We just don't see it with the eye. I mean, again, not saying that it doesn't mean that there's one cause. It doesn't mean that there's one thing that's going to debunk, so to say, it all. It just depends on the circumstances, case by case, and how it is. But a lot of times you get the people who will see these, like orbs and photos, and they're like, you can see a face in it.
Mhm.
And I'm like, is this Glenda the Good Witch from Wizard of Oz? Do you remember she came down and there was like this jig ball and it was like her face, and then she manifested out of it. When somebody catches on video a person, a ghost that looks like a person that is manifesting out of one of these orbs, then I will believe this is how they travel, and that is a human spirit. Then I will entertain that. Right now, looking at things from science side of things, I think it is a byproduct reaction that occurs by the new energy coming into the atmosphere. You have to look at things that if things are coming into our dimension, like interdimensionally, their vibration, their frequency, their atom makeup may literally be at times polar opposite, like two magnets forcing against each other to ours. So we have this new energy come in. It would make complete sense to me that static and photons, these lights that people see, could occur by this new energy coming in. I think it is maybe not all times, some of the times may be related to ghost, but I'm really, really not convinced in any way that they are in fact ghosts, the orbs themselves.
Yep. I want to go back to Bigfoot for 1 second. And that is the reason that the reason be that they're not being caught on FLIRs is because they're not heat. Maybe they're cold-blooded and they're not, or maybe they blend into their environment by temperature. You know, that would be a reason that they would not be picked up on a FLIR camera.
If it was on a FLIR, you should be able to see it either or, right? Because we can see any temperature differences. So whether it be a cold or a hot spot. Jay, in the second documentary, Beyond the Kettle, that he has, I went out there. The joke is he brought me out there because he knew I was going to do the Scully. That's how I call him Mulder. He calls me Scully. Because if somebody, I'm like, I'm going to debunk this. I couldn't. Now, what was interesting was the size. I was trying to figure out, could it have been it was high up. How did the ground go? Was it a small animal? What was the heat intensity? All those things you're looking at. I think that, again, which does sound kind of science fiction, but I'll explain, there actually is real experiments that we have been doing. Scientists have been doing. It could be a cloaking.
Mm-hmm.
And now we think that sounds like crazy. Well, think about this military use, what they can do where you have something right in front of you and you can't see it because it's blended in. It's essentially a visual cloak.
Mm-hmm.
What they're doing is they're playing with the same things we're talking about with all the science stuff, the bending of light. So the observer won't see anything different, won't see that to the eye. And so this cloaking can happen. There is an experiment that that I'm trying to think of where this was done at Cornell University, MIT. And this is a really crazy one. This was a completely different type of cloaking, but it was using the same principle, bending of light, essentially, an extreme manipulation of electromagnetic fields. Now, they were able to do this where they cloaked an event or cloaked time, which sounds totally science fiction. Now, here's the thing. It is literally for like, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank now, like 120th of a nanosecond. I mean, there's like literally nothing. Like we blinking takes us longer than they were able to do it for, but they were able to do it. Where is our technology and our understanding and our intelligence and capabilities going to be 100 years from now or more than that? We are slowly approaching a point in time where we are going to have quantum computing, where it's going to take us, an hour, what used to take us 10 years to learn. So with all of this, that we're going to be learning, where are we going to be in our capabilities? So if we know nothing in the realm of, infancy of what we understand science-wise, the universe, ourselves, our brains, all of those things, what are we going to know later on? And what other capabilities might other cultures, universes, dimension, beings in those dimensions have that we may or may not have yet?
Yeah.
And
Because
so
we're in the fourth industrial revolution going on right now. What is going to change between the fourth and the fifth and the sixth? We know it's going to happen, and they're coming closer and closer together.
right.
We've changed so much just since World War II. Look at, that's at least, I know it's not 100 years, but compared to the first part of our industrial revolution, that's a small period of time. We've we've learned so much in just this amount of time.
Right.
So, and I wish I was kidding. Because just in our lifetime, we've probably learned more than they did 100 years ago. We probably learned, some of us have learned more than 100 years worth of stuff in our lifetime.
Right. Well, think about it. Like metal, science in itself is across the board, whether it's physics, theoretical, medical science, where it is just a constant learning as we go. And it really only has been for about, maybe the last 200 years. I mean, think about what they were doing just in the late 1800s.
Yeah, bloodletting and all this stuff for a headache. And now,
we didn't understand, like Madame Curie with the radiation poisoning and all of that, where we're got all the technology to where we're doing MRIs, and we really have advanced a lot. And we think, oh, wow, we're all that, now. Well,
and we're still nowhere.
We're still nowhere. It's still in its infancies. So I think a lot of it, we're, trying to figure it out as we go. And a lot of these things are possibilities based on at least some fact in science at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always say this, it's like people, and I don't care if it's Bigfoot or, again, if we're talking about a shadow person, people are experiencing something. Now, not all of that, percentage wise, the most logical thing we have is math. That is, numbers don't lie, statistics don't lie. That's it is what it is. So when we look at something that way, and we look at how many people are reporting things, what percentage of those are misidentifications? I don't know, but I don't know what that is, but it's probably, a significant amount. What percentage of those is, people who are mentally not well?
There's going to be a percentage of that.
How many percentage is just going to be simple misidentification? of things.
Without all
So-
the data, we'll never know the true percentage.
No, but as you go down that, it doesn't matter if it lands up being 1% that is spot on, accurate, everything fits to it being whatever the phenomena is, Bigfoot or else. That is that 1% that you're after there. And so now if you look at it and go, okay, well, it's only 1%. Well, that's 1%. That's pretty weird that these things exist out there and we don't know how they work or what they really even all are in their, whatever incarnation they're coming in, or people are. But the bottom line is people are experiencing something. I think it's really important to use equipment. As much as we need to use ourselves, we have to use equipment because we have to get outside of our faulty brains. Our brains have 101 ways that it can lie to us, and it's normal, it's natural. So we need to have technology outside of us to help gauge that. Witness testimony. I talk to anybody who's in law enforcement. They did right. They're going to tell you like how many people are going to come up with all these, things that they're seeing or not seeing, or what the person looked like. They did this at the college. Where they had the guy come in. There were students in the class, and a man came in, put his briefcase down on the desk. Everybody assumed he was, the teacher, the instructor, and was like, okay. And he's sorry. Oh, I gotta get something. Could you guys just watch? Just don't let it watch my stuff here. Okay. Guy leaves the room. Another man comes in, picks up the briefcase off the desk and walks out. The original man returns. The original teacher returns. Well, what do you mean somebody came in? They got descriptions, everything of who this man who came in and took the teacher's briefcase, with facial hair to no facial hair, glasses, no glasses. Oh my gosh, this is just one classroom of how different people's recollection of it can be. So you have to take this into consideration as we go through other people's accounts of what happened. Our brain is going to fill in the blanks. It doesn't not like to know the answer, so it will sometimes make it up. And sometimes our brain drops information. We literally take in tens of thousands of visual and audio things in a day that we don't even realize because our brain just nicely filters it for us. But sometimes it makes some mistakes. It filters it and says, you don't need to really know this. It's not important. We need to focus on this. Nope, you don't. Put it to the back. Put it to the back. We're going to focus. It's sort of like you've seen the old shows, like I think it was called Brain Games. And the guy's like walking down the street and the host is talking, blah, 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 blah. And then he stops and says, and I bet you didn't notice. And there's like some crazy looking chicken person hanging out a window. And all the other things that were in the background. Because as much as we think we're taking it in on a conscious level, most of it is at a subconscious and and our brain filters it away. So like all of those things you have to look at.
It's like being married and listening to your spouse talk. and I'll tell you, yesterday, okay, this is just yesterday. He was talking to me about making some bets. And I looked at him later on and I said, did the Chiefs win? And he goes, did you not hear me when I was talking about Buffalo? And I was like, no. I didn't put 2 and 2 together that they were the same thing at the time because I stopped watching the NFL. But I have to now keep in mind that he doesn't care about the teams themselves. He cares about the scoring and the betting. I'm like, okay. So I felt like an idiot last night when I asked him, did the Chiefs win?
And he's like, did you not no?
And he talked about this for like 35 minutes. It's not like it was a fleeting thing. He showed me paper and all the stuff he had written out. And my brain just said, it's not important. It's the NFL. And I can't do that. It's not right. But again, it's the same thing. To me, my brain was saying, this is not important.
Right.
I don't need to remember this. And apparently I did, because I asked a question about it later. Not a good for your marriage kind of thing.
I think that's probably more typical though, right?
It is. I mean, I know he does the same thing with me. He's going to ask me on Friday, what time do we have to be at the wedding? Even though I've told him I know everything.
I know now.
Yeah. Hopefully you'll remember by
well,
then.
I was.
So, but you know how it goes.
We were told to show up early for pictures.
So lots of different things. So, but
I know when the wedding is.
Huge things, communication, things that you see, cues. It's all a big deal. And
Right.
but the thing is it's what did we filter out that was important?
Right.
But I've seen that study about that. They actually did that in our classrooms in Baltimore, mostly because there was so much crime going on. They wanted us to know how to watch and be able to give the police a description of something that was going on at the time. And they would do it in conjunction with, a school resource officer coming in and going, people needed to know that being a police officer wasn't easy because of this same thing that you're just talking about, this phenomenon.
Right. And and it's like a lot of people too, when you're talking about, like what your brain remembers and what it doesn't. That's why I like literally already like maybe not quite 20 years ago, but 18 years ago or something, had started with the practice of during in paranormal investigations of using on-body recorded audio, not just for EVP and all that sort of thing, which it really is honestly the easiest and only way you can 100% prove. Because I know, and and who people know that it's all legit. But if you have to think about it, like a court of law, if you had to present this, how would you prove it? Right? Is if you and I are in a room and I think I have an EVP on my recorder, and I go, well, it just was you, Denise, was just you and me. This is a guy's voice. That sounds great, but nobody else knows there wasn't a male in that room. But if we take your on-body audio recorder now, and you have the same timestamp, the same conversation, but you don't have a voice on yours, bingo. Now you've got an EVP with no question. That same kind of mental or that attitude can cross over into, other things that we're doing. And I don't know where I was going with the rest of this. I was going to try to cover it. And then I just thought, nope. I'll just be like, I don't know where my brain was going with that.
You want to know what? We are so much alike. It's pitiful. So and the thing is, you'd think we'd hung out before, but based on this information. So I'm going to ask the questions that we've got. Since we've got about 20 minutes left, I want to make sure that we get the questions asked. So Russell Hughes asks, what are your thoughts on Dogman?
I think that I think people are experiencing and seeing something. There is been enough, at least what seems like from legitimate sources, video cases. I think here's the thing too. I have a great respect for Linda Godfrey, who coined the phrase beast of Bray Road. But there's Dogman and Wolfman all over the country, really. You get or skunk
Tiny too. Remember we were talking about tiny before?
Yeah.
Linda Godfrey is tiny.
Yeah, she is. She's very petite. Yeah. And she is a very petite, so you get that again. And so I think people are experiencing, I think that there is a legitimate case. The interesting thing I will say about Dogman is it depends on the area of the country. But I kind of tend to think that may be some of the most misidentified sightings. of things, because you do get, and I cannot think of what they are right now, but there's, like this standing up on the two legs, but still looking very, animal like, that there could be cases for this. And I can't think of the animals' names. And then there's also like some diseases too that they get and whatever. But the bottom is, I mean, they're pretty big. I don't know, are they seeing like, some mangy bear? And it's just that you can't see it, or the face. I don't know,
Again, the pictures are always blurry, so it's hard to tell.
blurry, grainy. Yeah.
So that's the only, it's just like Goat Man. There's a Goat Man in Maryland. There's a Goat Man in Alton, Texas. There's I don't know what to believe on that. I'm and of course, I'm friends with Frank Bennett, who wrote a book about the Aberdeen Wild Man, grew up in the area where this is, supposed to be. I've never seen anything. I'm not discounting anybody's stories of what they've seen, because I've only seen one thing I couldn't explain, and it was just down the road here. And there's not a lot of stuff to be hiding behind in Kansas, but it just makes you wonder, what is it that we're seeing? Why are we seeing it? Why don't we see it more often? And that's the only way we can, keep asking questions and keep researching until you can prove or disprove whatever it is.
Because interesting, and I don't want to say it's across the board, but a lot of times, particularly even more so with Dogman type sightings than, let's say, Bigfoot, are at night. You often, a lot of times, off the side of the road, so they're getting the headlights, they're getting the lights, but you're seeing things that are in ditches, the side gullies on next to a road, and it's nighttime. It's not like you get a lot of those sightings, families just camping, and it's noon and they're eating hot dogs and they see Dogman, kind of situation. It does not seem to be the case. But again, I think a lot of these type of things exist, but a significant portion may be misidentification type of thing, or just not knowing, like we were saying, like, okay, Bigfoot eats this. Well, how do you know this? We don't, well, we don't. I mean, at least the guy, like this one guy was, cool enough guy to kind of admit it when he was kind of pushed on a reason why, well, we don't really know, but you go on to why you think that might be the case.
So I'm going to ask, we got one more question that's in this realm of stuff we've been talking about. Maybe two. Steve Foster asks, what is your opinion of Skinwalker Ranch?
Well, here's the thing, I think, well, first of all, as soon as you say Skinwalker Ranch, I literally don't watch any of the paranormal shows. I haven't for years. You just, I will a lot of times, sometimes, the people on the show. So like to support them, you'll maybe for ratings, like in the beginning, you'll watch them a little bit, but then it's just not, I just don't watch them. Except the television show Skinwalker Ranch, which really has nothing to do with the folklore or ghost lore or I don't of what a skinwalker is, but really I love what they're doing on that show. They are throwing everything, at least that we know of, that they can at these technology wise, and are making a legitimate case.
That's a good show.
It is a good show. I totally agree. There is so many things, like look how many years though we did hear the stories about Skinwalker, that it was all very much more mystical and ghostly, and they're changing forms and all of these things.
They haven't seen any of that.
No, because now we're getting different information because we've brought science into it. We've brought technology into it. It does look like it is. I am so looking forward to seeing this season because it does look like they've had some really great captures of UFO because they went even beyond a UAP. The thing was like a UFO that kind of just disappeared. It looked like some type of portal, like a dimensional type portal. It was like an envelope. The thing just goes behind and it's gone. But also how things were bouncing off of like in the middle. So in Skinwalker Ranch in general, I think is an interesting area to study. I think there are multiple areas like Skinwalker Ranch around this country and around the world.
Yeah.
That's why up by the Kettle Moraine in Wisconsin, where I've researched at and Jay has researched at. And he's continuing to do that out there. You have multiple, I mean, literally in the same night, in the same thing of like, okay, I've had more ghostly, like EVP type of thing, but then there's, somebody had sighting, you're seeing orbs, and you're seeing a UFO and weird equipment failures and, all these types of things. Some of these areas, I think, become very conducive to, and I say this broadly, paranormal activity. That they're just like we talk about limestone or water being a conductor for that, activity. Absolutely. So you're like Kettle Moraine. That was one of the first things I looked after we had that incredible light show. It was just crazy with the light anomalies. I was like, what is under the ground here? Okay, it's a glacial area. We're dealing with a tremendous amount of quartz. We're dealing with, water tables underneath, all of these things. And then also the kettle and the moraines. So you almost, in some ways, like a little bit of like with Skinwalker Ranch, you have areas that create almost like satellite dish. That can help concentrate that whatever energies are in frequency coming there.
Yeah, that concave area tends to do that, to be very conducive to a lot of things. You've got other places like the Bridgewater Triangle and up in New Jersey, Connecticut, New York type area up there. I don't remember. I believe it's all in New Jersey. And then you've got down in Arkansas where the Broadcamp mountain is. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. It's a quartz mountain. Okay. They've got Bigfoot. They've got alien sightings. They have, spirit stuff going on. So it doesn't have to be huge area. It just has to be, there's just areas, like you said, that tend to be more of a draw for paranormal activity, whatever paranormal activity it is, all paranormal activity. So it's interesting to say the least. So April, when she's talking about this, remember when I had on Jay Pachochin, and we were talking about his movie as well. So if you remember back to then, that'll tell you about the area. My cousin lives in Little Chicago, Wisconsin.
Okay.
It's near Wausau.
Okay.
So let's see. Here's another question for you. It's from Steve. If we made it so that any kind of proof would have fit into a court of law, I think that it would be such an improvement on what we submit as evidence.
I 100% agree. That's what I try to, and it's not to dismiss, like, I think there's nothing wrong with all the different going out there, people that go out to investigate for different reasons, right? But if you're going to go out there and you're doing it for because listen, you're not doing it to help people if you're going to a pay and play, right? Those are known If you're going in somebody's home, then you're helping people. So one, just be, know why you're doing it. But if you're going out there, one of the things early on that I was just so stringent with things in the controls, making sure that I am using, this is, before a lot of the technology we have now, that using home security, that nobody's coming in or out. When you're doing your camera setups, make sure I do room audio. Leave the room audio so that you have the audio recorder sitting within the view of the camera so that you can see that nobody walked up and whispered. Okay, so now you got something to present like in a court of law. Okay, nobody came in and out of this room. You can see these are the only entrance or exit. Here's the audio recorder. Nobody's walked up. Explain how that voice got on there. Those type. So I think it should, if more people took that attitude and put as many controls in place as possible. The other thing is some of these ITC devices that we use, like Spirit Box, but there's all kinds of variations of them, EchoVox, this, that, and the other, it's interesting because I have had somebody else ask it, and I was thinking it because him and I thought the same thing, and said, hey, does it have a live mic? What? Does it have a live mic? So what he was trying to get at is it repeating back in its language of what it is hearing? If it has so people don't always understand what their equipment is, what it does. And so you just, keep trying to find the best way to, I always call it the paranormal melting pot. You have that pot, everything's melted in. Now it got to go in piece by piece and pull out what is not paranormal. Right. What you're left with, that's what you're now going to be you're working with. And that's, at least in this point in time, the truth.
Right. And I agree with you on the ITC devices. If it has words built in, it has a live mic, requires the internet to work, if it has to have location services, all that stuff. Ghost radar is not real.
GPS locate. I know, like those ones on the phone when they first came out, people were like, oh my God. Oh, and they get creeped out and they're like, oh, it's I'm like,
entertainment.
GPS, wherever you are is where you're going to show up at.
I found that a lot of them had triangulation in it. And, how I found out was I drove home with Ghost Radar on my phone the whole way home. And when I got close to a place where somebody had died and I knew they had died, it pulled up something along those, and it said hung. And this lady had hung herself in the park near where we live. And the thing is the words it pulled out were words that were used in the newspaper. It was all online. I could find every word online through Google. And so it was using Google Locate and all this other stuff. And so I tore apart the app to find out what it was doing. And I found out it was, by locating and try locating where I was at based on the information. But again, I do code for my job. So it's like, I know what to look for. So if it's doing that, you don't want it because it's already fake.
That's what I felt about the Ovilus back in the day when
it does have a mic developed. In it. Yeah, it has a mic in it and people don't know it.
And on top of it, that was the thing. You noticed a lot of these pieces came with no specs. Like and I get it because here you don't want somebody stealing your idea and your technology, but at the same time, your user has no idea what they're using. And one of the things was, it's got a built-in vocabulary. It could be, let's say, 2,000 words. And how is it coming up with these words? Well, according to the electromagnetic frequencies that it's coming in, that'll trigger, is it going to say, but how do we know that your most common, the freezer in the basement kicking on, stuff around us at those frequencies, those aren't the ones that are death
and demon.
Yeah. Fell, hung, like all those kind of common, that they're probably assigned to some of the most common frequencies that are like stray going across us at all end point. So, again, you just know what you have to know what you're using.
So since we're talking about equipment, we have a question from Gary. He asked, what's your favorite equipment?
Oh, this is going to be so corny.
That's okay.
My
We
brain.
like corny.
My brain.
Remember, we're in the
mind.
Midwest. We like corn.
All right. That's a cheesy answer. And you'll be like, yeah, I don't want that stupid answer, Mary. But it really is using how you're going to think and perceive, thinking outside of the box, really realizing that just because the 5 people I'm in a room with don't know the answer to how this might be possible, doesn't mean there isn't an answer. We're just not experts on everything. And so you just have to do your due diligence afterwards to go through that. With that being said, probably my favorite is one of the most simple, an audio recorder. I have learned so much about the entities at houses and locations that I've been really fortunate enough. A couple of them where I've been able to go back time after time. Like over a 3-4 year period, go back, multiple times a year, and learning about all of the history and all through EVPs, and then taking that and looking at their, census records and other historical records that they may have on it to verify. So I'm a big proponent in that way of the old fashioned, at least, by saying an audio recorder. With that being said, if I had tons of money, there's lots of cool equipment out there, like they use on Skinwalker's Ranch. That would be nice. Dude, I don't even know, like hundreds of thousands of dollars that they have in equipment on that show. Oh my gosh.
Well, I mean, they've used ground penetrating radar. They've used
those rockets, just the rockets, what the cost of those would be.
Right. And then they've used actual LiDAR from above. Just digging into the mines themselves. I mean, just the equipment that they use on just regular digs have been amazing. Right. So I know Ron really likes that show. Last year we got a new grandbaby and I was spending all my time with the grandbaby. So he got involved in Skinwalker Ranch and he's watched 2 seasons of it. Mm-hmm. And anybody who's looking for it, it's on Netflix, or at least it was.
Yeah. But you know what? The last season, I'm so frustrated with the cutting the cord thing, because the trick is it's History Channel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Netflix only has,
They move everything from station to station.
Well, they do. And it's like, oh, this is only available on the app. This is only. And so like Netflix doesn't even have I think the last 2 seasons.
No.
So I was able to find it. I still had my satellite, my DirecTV last season ending. When that ended, I finally then cut the cord. Now I'm like, where am I going to watch this season? Because I got to keep up with it, because where it went to, now it's getting good. Like it was good before. Now it's getting really.
You just need to find a local bar that lets you change the channels and just go and eat and watch. It's no different than watching a football game.
Yeah.
So
I always find it funny. I said, we're going to loop back someday where, maybe 10 years from now, somebody's going to have this great idea of, hey, why don't we take all these different apps and put them in one place and call it like cable or network tele. I don't know. Crazy idea.
Funny story is we were looking at houses and we found out this one area that we were looking at did not have any cable in their area. You had to get satellite dish or you only got antenna TV. This was 20 some odd years ago. We ended up buying a house here where we are because they had one cable provider, just one. They had a dispute and we had to get dish. at that point.
See, but even
like-
that though, with the Dish or DirecTV, or it drives me nuts. Of we did have it all in one place, and then you guys started jacking the prices up because you were competing against yourselves. Like I was just saying, oh, whether it's a History Channel, this, that, they have their shows, but now the new ones, some of these, really popular ones, are only available on the app.
Yeah, for at
You're
least
now
at least 6
competing
months.
against yourself.
Mhm.
So the prices went up where people can't afford it, and that's why everybody cut the cord, or is cutting it, as the expression goes. Someday it's all going to come back together, and we're going to be right where we started, because they're like, this is crazy that we have to go to this app for this show and that one for that one and that one. What if we put them all in one place? Yes, that's what we had. Why did we have to mess it up?
You know what I have to say? Kansas City did that with their airport. So it was a good airport. It was easy and peasy to get around, and it's all screwed up now. But now it's going to be fun. It's going to be like going to Denver. I don't know if any of you have ever had to get on a plane in Denver. It sucks. So, but I'd like to thank you so much for being on the Paranormal Pride tonight. Where can everybody find you, Mary?
Go to the paranormalmd.com or mediummarymarshall.com, and then you can find out what I'm up to, what's going on.
She's always busy, so keep that in mind if you reach out. She takes a little while sometimes to respond because she is a very busy lady and people want her at their conferences. So join us next week for, let's see, who do I have next week? I just created us a brand new calendar, so I should be able to do this. Next week, my guest is June Lundgren, Demon Seer. If you guys saw the, what was it? The Astoria Ghost Adventures. She's the one that touched Zach and gave him the ability to see what she sees. It's really good. I had her on actually 4 years ago this week. So this is about our anniversary. And then join us tomorrow night at 5 p.m. Central Time for Rhonda and Dwight Hull on Paranormal Nation Radio, Not So Normal. So check that out. And then this week on Thursday, we have a special show at 8 p.m. Central. And we are going to have multiple people coming on to tell us their paranormal stories, their firsthand accounts of things that scared them silly or scared them to death. Luckily, nobody died, but that would be fun to talk about. Scared them. So, and so far, we've got some really good people coming in. So you guys, I'm not going to tell you who they are. You're just going to have to tune in to find out. So thank you, guys. I hope you'll be here next Monday at 7 and check out all the other shows here on the Bill of Rights Network. And have a great night.